Right. So, hey, welcome to Works. And my name is Joe. I'm president of the board of directors. That means I take out the trash and shit, as well as look for money. And so, thanks to everybody, even in the room, like Al. Yeah, Al. Well, Al's a former board member over here. Um, Bill has been one of our donors for a long time, actually, and so has Rob Pesich, and actually because I made her do it, so is Laura over here. So yeah, yeah. So thanks everybody for chipping in, and we really need that. There's been some cutbacks this year, just to kind of be honest with everybody. Um, we're not in any sort of trouble or that, but expenses have been more in this larger place, and so we found out that we need about 75,000 a year to kind of keep going. And last year we got nearly 90. However, this year we've been turned down for some national and state grants that they're drawing back because of budgets and the end of COVID money and that. So we're anticipating about a $35,000 fall off, actually. So we really, really appreciate the individual donations. That's been like super important for us. Right now, in the gallery, I think some of you guys saw it, is our member exhibition, which is 98 local artists. A couple more here should be there, but maybe didn't get the invite in time. But 98 local artists who support Works, and so that's all over there in the gallery, even including a little piece of mine. So now they support Works by being a volunteer, which a lot of people over there are, by donating to our auction. And by, of course, just contributing some funds, anywhere from $25 up to our largest members being in the couple $1,000 range, which every single one of those really counts and matters a lot. To show those numbers and that sort of thing is fantastic. So what's next? Next coming up at the beginning of the year is going to be the anti-Valentine show. So we're thinking that might be an interesting charged show with everything going on in the world, going on with upcoming elections, going on in Europe, in the Middle East, all sorts of things going on that the Valentine and the anti-Valentine might take on a different kind of attack this year. So we'll see where that goes. It's going to be open to everybody. It doesn't cost anything to be in the show. So if you're a visual artist, make sure to pay attention to what we're doing. That's going to be in mid-January that we're bringing in work for that. Following that is going to be our very important annual benefit auction. We thought maybe we could skip it this year, but with the aforementioned fall off in grants, we're really going to have to ask artists to come in again and do that. We thought maybe we could do the auction maybe kind of every other year, but it looks like financially that's not working out. But everybody's just been asking us, when's the damn auction? Because they want to, because artists want to be in the show, but also 50% of the proceeds go back to artists if they request it. So it's good for them as well if things can move. So thanks for paying attention to us. We've got a full slate of things all the way up. Go to our calendar basically, because we've got a full slate of things all the way up to all the way up to July, basically. That's all programmed right now. So we're looking at, I forget when it is right now, but we're looking at, I think we've got 5 proposals in front of us for the later part of 2024. So we're looking at a pretty exciting lineup of things out there. We've got a great show of art from various cultures, including primarily the Islamic world, around pattern and culture. We have a group of indigenous artists looking at sacred spaces in the Bay Area and how many of them have become things like parking lots and that sort of stuff. And so kind of looking at a really big range of things. So thanks for hanging in there with us. Thanks for being here tonight and with us online. I'm going to give to you now the president, the effing president of Poetry Center San Jose, Mr., as he comes up here, Rob Pesich.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you for coming in. Thank you all in YouTube land and future viewers. Thank you, Works, for hosting the show here tonight. I would like to start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Poetry Center San Jose and the city of San Jose exist on the unceded land of the Muwekma. We recognize that the Muwekma people are alive and flourishing members of the community today and recognize their right to this land, which they have stewarded throughout generations. We acknowledge that members of the San Jose community and residents of California and the United States continue to benefit from the use and occupation of indigenous land. We acknowledge that this land has come under the control of various entities through violence and dishonesty, and we recognize the history and legacy of colonialism that continue to negatively impact indigenous peoples, their traditional territories, practices, sovereignty, languages, life, ways, and well-being to this day. Donate to the Bay Area-based Sorogea Land Trust, led by urban indigenous women. I'll put that in the chat, and that will also be in the YouTube discussion page. Now for a moment of silence. Thank you. Poetry Center San Jose is a member-supported organization, and for information about upcoming events and how to support, just visit pcsj.org. Upcoming events: beautiful black books featuring Billy Tuggle reading and in conversation with Shaka Campbell. December 16th via Zoom, 11 a.m. Poetry Exchange, Sunday, December 17th via Zoom, 1 to 3 p.m., hosted by Brandon Liu. And Third Thursdays featuring Ike Welts, and that is hosted by Mighty Mike McGee, December 21st, the longest night of the year, 7 p.m. at Willow Glen Public Library. That is at 1157 Minnesota Avenue, San Jose. There are open mics there, as well as at Poetry Exchange. And now for our featured guest, Pascual Mendivil lives in San Jose. His work has appeared in numerous journals, including the classic Ajax Anthology, #2, the Montserrat Review, and Compact Bone, that edited by Romany Grant and Larry Krause, Ajax Anthology by our very own Bill Cozzini. He has read at many venues in Santa Clara County. Many themes and tones unite in his poems: family life, personal tribulations, justice, love. His humanity, candor, and passionate lyricism remind me of the poetry of Cesar Vallejo. Please welcome Pascual.
Israel. Santa Madre, ¿cómo puedo poner en un papel lo que siento en el corazón? Papel es un papel. Un corazón es un sol que lanza sus rayos de vida cada segundo. Santa Madre, globo de fuego, dices, mejor que ya me lleve, ya para qué sirvo. Santa Madre, el calor que me has dado, lo siento. Lo he guardado, lo he almacenado. Rompo las palabras y las tiro a tus pies. De hoy trataré de honrarte con mi vida, con mi conducta. This is what I'm going to read tonight is the first time I ever been able to read this in one piece at one time. I read it at Nirvana Soul in 5-minute segments. And I read part of it in San Jose in total, but tonight is the first time I'm going to read the whole thing at once. And this is the only one I'm going to read because we have some invited guests. We have Roberto Duran, we have Susan, we got Preciado, we got Bill Cozzini, we got Roberto down there, we got Joe right here. We need plenty of room for folk that want to read. And this is my response to the massacre of people of color all over our land, and then they leave manifestos bragging about it. This is my response to that. My mother's huaraches were blue. My father and me bought them at the mercado and gave them to her on the day of her saint, El Viejito. No, pues sí. I feel that I shouldn't even be talking to cultured people like you. I should be sitting in the corner drinking my cinnamon tea and listening, that's all. No, pues sí, I don't know anything about poems. I barely know how to write my name. This is about poetry. And what can I tell you? The youth invited me, that I, as an old man, should say something. And I told them, well, I can write my name, but that's all. This is about poetry. And what could I tell you? Well, they told me to just say something that came from my heart. They told me to say something I thought was good. Tell them about your life, they told me. No, pues see, look, I come from a little ranch, and I am much more than 100 years old. And the only thing I know are the fields of grass and the corn and the animals. Since I was a little child, that's what I did. And I felt happy with the plants and the animals. And I learned how to take care of the animals. And I learned the name of each plant and what each was good for. And what plants and what roots you could eat and which you could not eat. I knew that helped the family. And well, that's how we lived. In the cold morning, I would leave with my sarape and my little sack morralito, and then the sun would hug me and warm me, and I would whistle and sing, and the sound of the creek and the frogs and the wind would whistle too, and the birds and the insects, they talk too. Maybe they sing too, and the rabbits and the little animals and the margarita and azucena flowers and the bougainvillea among the rocks. Oh, pues sí, I felt that I was part of them. And when I whistled and sang to them, even the insects were silent, like when the water fell from the sky after a drought, or the moon and the stars at night. I lived in a little ranch, but sometimes I would go into town with a burro for provisions. I would rest for a while they filled my order. I would sit on a stool at the stand in front of the mercado where the wagons stopped. In the shade, I would drink a barley cebada with broken ice, or rice cinnamon horchata with broken ice. I would nurse it and make it last and look at the people and look at the wagons. I would talk to the poor people there about what was good in the mercado that day and about those in town who did not worry about prices. And they told me how some would pay for a banquet by only signing their names, while the poor had to eat food for poor animals. Across the street, in front of me, I could see old men with their pants legs rolled up, shirtless, a linen sheet covering their shoulders, knotted like a cape, carrying impossibly heavy sacks, up and down buckling planks, again and again like a machine or an animal. And I kept going into town and walking around more, and walking through all the streets. I would see them, and many would spit blood, so a few could live real nice, suave. And then it happened in our little ranch, what we had heard it happen to others. The marauders came to dip their tongues in blood. They took the animals and they took the seed and they burned the cornfields and raped the women and the little girls and the little boys and the person who said as much as Pio. Well, you know what they did. My father at first and other men and women who tried to protect us were cut down amidst the screaming and laughter with guns and machetes. I saw babies swung by their ankles, their heads smashed on the rocks. I saw babies thrown high into the air and caught on the knives of the rifles. The laughter rose when they did not catch the baby squarely on the steel and the baby fell to the ground. The babies and pieces of the babies were thrown in the pile with all the other bodies of the babies and men and women and my mother and my father and my baby sister. They told us all something about how this would teach us who not to give water to and who not to share our tortillas with. We sat on the school ground, our backs against the wall, watching the dead accumulate, and I thought, why do I love life so much? Why can't I do like my father? Why must I love life so much? Why? Because someone has to pay for this. And I'm scarred my opportunity. I saw something bloody move slowly, barely near the bodies, and thought it was one of the hungry dogs feasting again. Then I saw the blue huaraches. My mother. I looked away from the bodies and I glanced again. I saw her black and white shawl in a bundle underneath her as she crawled slowly into the pile of bodies. My mother, my sister, both alive. Don't look there, I told myself, and forced myself not to look there again. Then they came for me, and they took me inside the school. After they had their fun with me, they cut between my legs and cut off my nose. When I opened my eyes, I don't know when, my mother was trying to feed me pinole, and she was touching water to my lips. After my mother gave me life again, she told me my baby sister had died there under the bodies. And I closed my eyes and I wanted to hear something, but I only kept hearing those words, and it burned inside. It burned inside my head like the cornfields. That's why I went with the troop in Pancho Villa. I was now 14, and by my mother, I never stole or told a lie or did anyone any harm. But after what happened at the ranchito, I did take the life of several men. I started out with a machete, and the first soldier I killed, I took his rifle and his bullets. I saw him going to the cantina alone, and I waited for him. My pañuelo covered my nose and mouth, and I would cough like I was sick. My machete covered with my sarape, ready. When he came out, he laid his rifle on the ground, flat against the wall. He took off the belts of bullets, crossed on his chest, and placed them with the rifle. He sat next to me against the wall. He was eating tacos, and I was hungry. They looked good. I was about to stand up when I heard the laughter. Two other soldiers turning the corner and walking toward us. I didn't look at them. They didn't say anything. They went into the cantina. I quickly stood up, and from the side, I grabbed his hair and pulled him toward me. I wanted to see his eyes. I let go, and in a flash, swung the machete with all my might into his neck. And again, quickly, the rifle, the bullets, the belts with bullets, now wrapped in my sarape. I left the machete. I left the tacos. I was walking away behind the crumbling adobe wall of an abandoned house. Then I ran through an empty corral and through a vegetable garden, down the slope to the cottonwood trees by the river. When I sat on the damp dirt to catch my breath, I saw that I was again breathing between my legs, and I said, oh no. And I got up, walked slowly with little steps to a hollow of tree roots, where I sat down more hidden and pressed a sarape on my wound. I was holding between my thumb and forefinger a seed shell with wings. And I did my thumb and finger like that. And I was looking at the water and the shadows in the water, and the wings turned like that and then like that. And I was thinking of that, and I was thinking about the water and the shadows and the laughter, and I felt like I was under the water. And I felt like running. I felt like running to my mother, and I silently called her name, Mama. And then Mama, and I took a deep breath, and another, and said Mama, and thought of her fingertips in my hair, and I said Mama, Mama. And I thought of her as I took another deep breath, and then another. Hours passed. I felt rested, stronger. The bleeding was not as bad. I looked around out of the roots and slowly stood up. And with my sarape and with my sarape clutched to my chest like a baby, and I was looking around. I made my way along the trees to the crossing, to the hills. When I got to the place of the crossing, it was now very dark, as it had been darkening for a good while walking along the trees. And I could hear only a few low, muffled sounds coming from Colonia Rosales over the bank. I guess the time must be around midnight as I got down on the ground on my side and made myself like a ball to wait for the sun when the panguero would start crossing people on this panga. I would try to stay awake until the sun and rest. And I was thinking about the ranchito and the animals and the creek and the fish. And then I thought about the turtle. It's funny the things that come into your head sometimes. And I thought about my father and my sister and all the other people and the laughter and everyone crying. And I felt inside like when you hit yourself and it hurts the next day. Then I thought of my mother, and I thought of my mother, and I thought of my mother, and I thought of my mother. And then I felt like it was already light when it was still dark. And I would try to stay awake, waiting for the sun. When I awoke, it was already light, but the panguero hasn't arrived yet, and the panga was anchored and chained. There was a man sitting on the ground down the bank near the panga. Next to him were two big baskets, tied one on each end of a yoke, like a scale. I raised my pañuelo to cover my nose and mouth, as I had been doing now whenever I was around people. And I would cough, so they thought I had tuberculosis or something and would stay away from me. Slowly, I got up and carried my sarape. I slowly, gingerly, with small step closer to the panga and kneeled down with the sarape in front of me and tucked in the edge of the sarape a little bit to hide the blood that was on it. I saw cabbages and onions in his baskets. When I glanced him looking at me, I looked down. Looking down, I sensed him moving an arm into a basket, and I put my hand over a rock at my side that he couldn't see. I didn't look at him, but out of the side of my eye, I saw him come closer, and he had a clear bottle, and he said, "Ten, es agua," and reached out and offered me the bottle. I was very thirsty. And I took the bottle and put it under my pañuelo and took a drink and handed it back. I said, "Muchas gracias." The panga was just a square, flat wooden raft tethered to a wire tied to poles on each bank. The panguero arrived and was checking everything and getting ready, removing the chain and getting ready to cross us. The crossing cost 20 centavos, which I did not have. Waiting for the panga to be ready, the man with the baskets looked at me, and I looked at him, and I quickly looked down again. I was thinking, please help me. He asked, "Are you going to cross?" I said, "No." We waited in silence for a minute. He said, "You're crossing with me." With a tilting of his head, he pointed with his chin toward my sarape and asked, "¿Qué llevas allí?" I didn't know what to say, so I said, "Una barra y un pico." I thought he was going to laugh, but he didn't laugh. He said, "Ah." I thought he saw the blood on the sarape, but he didn't say anything. When the panga crossed us, he said, "Dios te bendiga, Dios te cuide." He lifted the yoke with the baskets onto his neck and shoulders and walked toward the town to sell his vegetables. And I walked up to the lomas, the hills, to hide and to heal. I hid in the hills among the bushes and cactus and rocks and caves. The hills were called Lomas de Mocusari Hills, named after the tallest hill there, Loma del Mocusari. With a broken, sharp rock, I would remove the needles from cactus and chew them for water. I would also look for plants that had fruit, like tunas, guamuchil, or pitayas, and plants that had roots that I knew I could eat. The hills were made of red clay, and there was an oven and some long pieces of wood hidden, covered under dirt. With the edge of my hand, I removed the dirt to uncover a piece and saw dry red clay. That's where he somehow made the pots to burn in the oven. When I heard him whistling and singing and heard the burros loaded with wood, I hid further into the bushes. and rocks for several days. I hid closer while he dug the clay and made the pots and burned them. When he left, I heard him singing, and I heard the burros loaded with the pots, he sold in town. When he returned twice more, I would hide, trying not to leave any trace like blood, but he knew I was there because he would always leave pinole and machaca and tortillas and salt and a pot of water covered with a white cloth. I would press the cloth on my wounds along with leaves from the ruda plant, like my mother had taught me. I would drink some of the water and eat some of the pinole and dried meat machaca and save the rest for when I left to find the troop. With the leaves and the sun, I grew strong. When I left, I wrapped a clean strip of cloth around the water pot like a ribbon and left it there in front of the oven where we would always leave water and food. In front of the water pot, as a thank you, I left some azucenas and margarita flowers that I had looked for and picked. The wahoo, which I had hollowed and dried, was full of water, which I had been saving, and I made a string from the cactus so that I could pour my water. The ground corn pinole and dried meat machaca were wrapped in a cloth. From a book at the ranchito, I knew where Sonora is, Durango, Chihuahua. I know where the sun rises over there. I know where the North Star is. I silently asked my mother to please throw her blessing upon me. I stayed in the hills and walked in that direction, looking for Pancho Villa and the troop. Staying in the hills, I followed the North Star for 3 days, then walked into the setting sun, walking along, following the star, or not following the sun. I would think of my mother and her sayings and stories and hymns. ¿Cuántas estrellas hay? How many stars are there? 50, porque no tienen cuenta. Dios es amor. Agua pasó por mi casa. Cate de mi corazón. Al que madruga, Dios le ayuda. ¿Cómo amaneció su merced? Achiseani, compay. ¿Todos hijos o todos entrenados? Para eso son los bienes, para remediar los males. Correcto. Bendice Dios estos alimentos y a los huérfanos, las viudas, los incapacitados, los prisioneros, los necesitados. Remove your sandals. You are on hallowed ground. And the time she saw someone playing the piano and singing, she said it was Brother Lencho Salazar. And she could still hear after all these years how beautifully he played and sang the hymn he had written, Fountain of Mercy, Fuente de Misericordia, O Spring, Fountain of Mercy, sweet hope that gladdens the heart. For 4 days, I walked in the setting sun. On the 5th day in the morning, I found the troop. They told me we were near Gomez Palacio, and there were young boys like me, and they had rifles like me. And I told them my story, and they gave me tortillas and beans. And they saw the blood, and they said, let's go see Mama. They said her name was Chenta, and everybody called her Mama. She was real old, and I saw that not just the boys, all the troop called her Mama. She said she used to be a nurse who went from village to village where doctors would not go. She saw to the sick, treated wounds, talked to the people, and delivered babies. She would go into jails, she said, take beans and tortillas for the sick and treated their wounds and spoke and sang with them and told them stories to ease their troubled mind. She was now always dressed in black. She had 2 black dresses and a black shawl and always tried to keep them clean. We had no medicine, but Mama had a black bag, good size like a papaya, tied to her waist in which she carried leaves and hierbas and ointments. I could smell the ruda. She rubbed the leaves and ointments between her palms and rubbed them on blisters and wounds. She said the green in the leaves was good for infections. She had a small matchbox in there in which she had folded paper smeared with a dark paste, which she said she had made. And she had in there a small blue jar with a cover, and inside was a white ointment. She said it was pig fat that she had washed and washed and washed and washed. She touched the white ointment with the tip of her finger and put it on a little piece of paper. Then she touched the dark paste and put it on the same paper, folded the paper and told me to rub it on the wound down there, but only lightly and with one finger so it would last longer. And she would tell us about the various plants and trees and flowers and the different parts of the plants, the roots, the leaves, the petals, and how the leaves make food for the plants. And she said there was a tree that had a hole in it that people drove through in a wagon. We all laughed about that, but she didn't laugh. And she told us about the places she had been to and things she had read in books, and also told us sayings like my mother used to. Some were the same, but some were new to me, like the one of the monkey dancing with money and the people without money dancing like a monkey, or the one about the green grocer's dog who does not eat and won't let anyone else eat either, and how the devil knows better than to appear before certain people. Every time when she cooked, she would say, women and children first. She said, I looked like her son who was killed when he was 15. She said that was why she fought. After the women and children ate, she was always bring me a taco. She said she would be my mother. When we were sitting down on the ground sometimes, she would gently scratch with her fingertips along my head for lice. As she talked and said sayings that I had never heard but sounded like a bell when I heard them. She said I looked like shiny money. I didn't know if that was good or bad, but her fingertips in my hair told me it was good. I didn't have lice, but her fingertips would sometimes pinch like she found something and then continue hunting. As she said more stories and said more sayings to try to make me laugh. I didn't laugh because I didn't feel good to laugh too much. But when she pinched with her fingertips, and then rub her thumb and finger together like she found something, I would laugh. And I could hear her laugh too. She taught me how to take care of my rifle and how to clean it. She said we would practice shooting without bullets. So I would have them when I started to shoot my rifle. I said, without bullets? She said, she pointed at her head and said, con tu calabaza, with your pumpkin. Bullets are not for practicing. I listened and watched and asked to learn. Now she fired a rifle, and I would fire mine for my mother and for my sister. As she fired, Mama kept singing and saying sayings and praying to her son, talking real low, but I could hear it sometimes. I didn't say anything, but each time I fired, I thought, Mama, my mother. I would see them hiding in the bushes and pull it like it was my last bullet. And when I saw the bulto, the bulk fall, how pretty it felt in my hand, like when you throw a rock and it hits, and how pretty it felt inside. It seemed that the innocent blood spilled at the ranchito spoke to me. And each bulk that fell was like one less cry of a child. It felt like when the rain fell after the drought, or when the sun would hug and warm me after the cold, cold night. No, pues sí. I went too far. I went too far. Please excuse this illiterate old man. Con su permiso.
Thank you again. We've got an open mic, and for those who want to share something on the open mic, we're going to pass it around in a few minutes and come back to the stage. All right.
All right. With Rob right there. Yeah. Yeah, seriously, that is. I know they're up tonight.
They're one like 8 games now.
Yeah.
Plus they're like close against good teams.
No, they're
Come back
coming back 3 times in a row, 2 of them winning, but one of them.
How about when they were four goals down to Detroit, they came back and won.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my, whoa, this was a different team, man.
Yeah.
So like they're fun to watch.
We shall see, like, yeah, so. As soon as Laura doesn't go. Really? All right.
That's gonna be a problem. Soon, you need help getting it typed up for submission.
No, seriously.
Okay,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Usually 10 to 1 and 10 to nothing. It's not like that anymore.
This is part of,
Who knows, they don't break the playoffs.
Yeah.
this is part of the, this is part of the cage.
Okay.
And hopefully, Roberto, how, be nice, man, to present that stage. And
So is the semester over now?
Piece, that's.
if you want to let me know going on, and I'm going to feel good for you.
Okay, yes.
So,
I wasn't sure whether they were
pretty
galleries.
much.
Gallery.
I gotta talk to
Is there one-
No gallery.
It's last week or
So,
what?
right now it's finals week, so
Yeah.
finals weekends already.
Yeah, Teresa's finishing up her first semester.
So my last final was.
Thank you.
I've got a bunch of grading due tomorrow, and then they've got until Sunday noon to turn in their single players. So I've got a little bit of work to do, but yeah.
Family and your,
It's your first full
I
semester.
said, Laura, I'm gonna have to go to work.
make the. And,
It's a first full semester. Like,
I'll go.
Actually, last semester was.
But I'll just.
Yeah.
You know, 30 minutes.
So this was our second, this was my second full semester.
Speaker, it doesn't matter how long you talk, like you're talking about it, so.
I'm trying to think, I guess I did half and half, I did every other, no, that's right, last semester I did every other.
Especially after share with the other people,
So, and
high schools and.
so I let them, come in to see me and that sort of thing, I was in every once in a while. I guess this was.
You're just basically flying in our.
This is my first one right now.
Yeah.
A little bit of a blur, because there was this big transition, or even, yeah, no, last semester was really bad. 2 semesters ago. I was in every other.
So which side is this? Okay. This one, it's still the opposite second floor, third floor.
I'm on the 3rd floor.
Yeah, okay, because like I walk by and I see the galleries. Okay, go, okay, I was going to the gallery, I walk by, and I see that robot.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
So.
It's that big round.
Yeah, I can see it. I just charged it. I'll see it. I don't know if we'll get anywhere working on
Oh.
And then you performance over there. Market.
Maybe.
Window.
We're talking about.
City was talking to you, you were talking to the city.
Oh, we don't have to share it, even if it's hard to share.
Because there's, people were waiting on time to get someone was screaming on the street. We're like, oh, this is talking stuff. Yeah. You get the window to be reading. No. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
You were just like street. Like meetings, like one best when you've ever done, wait, it was interrupting speech, like wait for the hand. No doubt in your voice.
Yeah, no, for you, it was, you brought it in.
But it's like,
Part of it.
like, I was supposed to read the 5 minutes.
Improvise with
And I thought it was like, taking advantage of.
Right.
Like, goodness, but going on and on, that's why I come.
Start having like, I should have just been more just about reading.
Remember I told you, I need 25 minutes, and you said, you get this 25, you probably got it expired. I had to figure it out, that's what how you were taking it to you, and you said, it's 5 minutes, and I tried to call it, and it didn't work.
Learn my lesson back.
Send it to the bird.
You gotta read when you gotta read, you know, so you can't be limited by time.
But you got it all there, I wasn't clear. I wasn't clear.
I was thinking about everybody else.
I just said, I didn't put this on here, but at one time, you know, 19. See, that was, I wasn't. That wasn't true. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, all right.
Good. By the way, you can do it. You're right, we have to read it straight through. And then there's no hesitation there, you have to read it straight through.
All right. We'll start off the open mic. And this is a short poem. It comes from former Yugoslavia during the civil wars of the 90s. And in Bosnia Herzegovina, there is a city called Mostar with a very famous bridge built during the Ottoman Empire, many hundreds of years old. It was destroyed during the Civil War, and many people died in Mostar. And go back to live in what home? A small field of stones, stumps. Our village was burned down. Even the soil flew away. And every stone in Stari Most is beautiful. And Stari Most rebuilt, not the same bridge. And my country is not the same country. It's just too much or not enough. Probably just like your country. We never considered jumping from the bridge. But now, many young people jump for money into the fast-moving, cold Reka Neretva. Some make a good living for a while. All right. Please welcome Bill Cozzini.
Yeah, baby.
All right, I'm gonna do a few short ones as I usually do. This first one is tomato scent. I smelled tomatoes brilliantly with the memory of labor, sweat of removing lantana and lilies, deep roots, wide roots, hold to make space. I taste tomatoes sweeter in the shadow of my father's death as I work to build health. I watch tomatoes wither against their age, struggle to grow in autumn sun, the stalks pulling water like a deep breath, buds less often in this cold air. Relativity whore. Have you posted a quote from an author, artist, poet, politician, or priest without reading the entire work that it came from? You are a perception whore, context whore, relativity whore, memeing into distraction from your movement. Just wipe and flush. Don't post. This piece, this is now a very short one. It's written with baby, meaning something very different in each one. And it's Palestinian political. I'm going to read it 3 times because it's referring to something each time. The baby cries for milk as the world burns. The baby cries for milk as the world burns. The baby cries for milk as the world burns. And this last one, just a fun one I enjoy. It's The Lost Bear. We know the seasons, the taste of sweet fruit and fat meats swelling our bellies, but we do not hibernate beyond the dream of stillness, envy of long, deep sleep. Mulled wine and pickled beets, sauerkraut and cured pork, rooting about our dark cellar.
Thank you, Bill. Now, please welcome to my Preciado.
Feels strange to be up here. It's been a long time. But I wanted to start off with a very short poem, and then I wanted to speak a little bit about what I thought were influential poets and artists in my life, if you don't mind. So this is for all my old lovers, last 30, 40 years. This is a short poem for them, okay? And of course, I stole it from somebody else. Oh, western wind, when will that blow again? That the small rain can rain down. Christ, that you were in my arms, and I in my bed again. I stole that. I love that poem. What I wanted to talk about was the entire San Jose art scene, and of course, Joe Miller has been a huge part of that, as Bill and has several other artists, Sherry, Brian. There's been some great people that have made this art scene happen, and I'm so glad that this reading is happening because I think it's really important to have some kind of connection between one point and another, especially with COVID and everything that's happened over the last 2 or 3 years. But I've seen artists just get up and get off their duff and do what they have to do to make things happen. And so that's why it was exciting to hear Pascual, because I thought he did an amazing reading. And in the past, to hear Roberto, because Roberto is a fantastic poet, and he has done some amazing readings for the Citadel, for other places that I've been part of, and he's been part of. And I don't think he gets enough credit. To me, he's like the grandfather of poetry, man. He's an amazing, amazing poet. And as he presents himself, in fact, one of my favorite memories of you, Roberto, is at the Citadel when you were about to read, and you didn't wait for an introduction. Instead, what you did was you screamed as loud as you could, and everybody just stood stock still. They were like shocked that somebody would do that. And you did that because, you knew who you were. You had no doubt who you were. So, and then you read from that point on, and it was an amazing performance. So I'm really thankful that I get to hear you guys and Bill and everybody else and Joe, because there's some great poets in San Jose. And I just feel we have to keep this up, in some way, somehow, some fashion, because I feel like this is what keeps San Jose alive. This is the blood of San Jose. We can say that it's about business and commerce and about, people making money and stuff like that. But really, it's about moments like this. These are the most heartfelt moments. These are the moments that bring us together as people. These are the moments that I treasure because as an artist, this is what I need for my soul. So I really, really, really respect all of you poets because you guys are doing an incredible job. Please do not give up. Please understand that even if you feel like nobody's listening, somebody's listening, So I think you're incredible. I just want to give you a hand, okay?
Thank you, Al, for those generous words. Thank you so much. And now, to conclude the night, please welcome Roberto Tinoco Duran.
I just love San Jose. I just love San Jose. Lo que pasa en Gaza, pasa aquí, dijo el colibrí, dijo el colibrí, dijo el colibrí. Ya. Guantánamo. Guajira, Guantánamo. Ya no aguanto no more. Guantánamo. El que salió, el que entró y que nunca salió de Guantánamo. Ya no aguanto no more. Ya no aguanto no more. No more. No more. No more.
All right. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, Pascual. Another round for Pascual. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. We'll see the show here. Are you gonna do something? Yeah.
All right. Oh, I don't know. Shit. So there's something because it's like I don't know. It's towards this holiday time when my mom was like she was a really brave woman, and she lost her husband when I was 10 years old, and sort of took me on in a really rough place in Richmond, California, when it was the murder capital of the United States. That's where I was growing up, and people were shot at my high school when I was there, and I was knocked down in my junior high and held with a knife to my face and that sort of stuff, which I actually never knew at the time that was not normal. I really thought that was the fucking world, because that was my world, and you don't know anything else when you're a kid, I didn't know it wasn't wrong to be molested, because you don't know that as a kid, and so anyways, I was about, I think I was 14 maybe, and somehow we went to Hawaii, me and my mom, for Christmas. It was really cheap because it's like fucking December going to Hawaii. And a long time ago, when Bill was doing Ajax and that sort of thing, I wrote this little song, for my mom, and just it was just a remembrance of being there. It's kind of nothing, but puka puka shell, bought it a block from the beach. Mama, your child is here. There's a zoo on Waikiki. White headstones in miles of rows. There's a ship down there with 1,000 souls in candy cane swimming pools. It's Christmas Day. Parade on Mud Beach. Snorkeling too. Oh, beautiful pufferfish. I hear you like spam. College kids dance for us while the grandstands sway. Oh, melikiliki makama, hand me the poi. It's so humid here. I need someone to. That was that.
Thank you.